The silence and the fury is here, and the time has come to unleash the Ghorgon. More than the Jabber, more than the Doom Bull, more than any other Beastmen unit, this was the creature I always wanted most. The Cloven Ones needed most, and in their darkest hour, the Bloodbrute Behemoth comes to turn the tide. Taurox the Brass Bull leads the Brayherds into battle against Oxyotl and the Ghosts of Tepok. That's not quite a figure of speech. The Coatl literally turns any unit below it, from tiny skink to gigantic Dreadsaurian, or even a bloated corpse in a 2v2, literally invisible. So the Air Force and the sneaky cold bloods down below are a big threat to Taurox and his rampage. The Feathered Serpent leads the charge, while Oxyotl, he who hunts unseen, blows up Centaurs with his golden blowpipe of Patui. He's hard to spot, it's even harder to catch, and he has scaling damage from range, so whether it's big monsters or small hitbox mages, the more HP they're missing, the more damage his blowpipe will do, and all the while, Chameleon Stalkers swarm by his side. We're on the blissful sunny slopes of Torgard today, in the shadow of the Anuli Mountains, and Taurox and his new Ghorgon friend feel like painting the town. The Brass Bull is fully kitted out with his rune-tortured axes, Blood Beast, and Brass Body abilities, and when he's engaged in close quarters combat, he passively gets up to 80 melee attack base just by showing up. Combine that with his massive ward saves, 130 armor, and heavy cav speed, and his threat as a monster hunter and elite infantry killer is one that cannot be ignored. Pardon the pun, but dude's kind of a beast. And unlike in the source material, there's no way to just kill him right away. You gotta just kill him with a grind. Can't shoot him in the throat. Next to him is a Bray Shaman of the Lore of Wild, Volatile and Savage Dominion as his two spells on a Tuskgore Chariot, which as I said feels like it will replace Razorgores in terms of cost efficiency. And the real star of the show today is the Bloodbrute Behemoth, the Regiment of Renown Ghorgon. Four-armed oxen monstrosity with scaling damage and a straight-up redonkulous stat line. Gets past 110 melee attack when fighting large targets, which means it's one of the best monster hunters in the game. The issue, of course, is that low armor, so Skink Focus Fire can definitely put the hurting on him. I think he was originally intended to have more armor than the normal Ghorgon, because if you look at that model, he has quite a bit more armor pieces fused to his skin, but perhaps CA already felt he was strong enough, and in these early days, I have a feeling they might have been correct. Besides that, nothing too fancy. Got the new Groghooves of Wolf's Run, regenerating poison axe eating skirmish cav, truly marked by the dark gods and Nurgle's foul stink. See what they can do, but no land-based dinos for them to shoot here. My opponent is the legendary Okoi, the meme lord of Yore, coming to join us on the battlefields of multiplayer. It's been a joy to play with in early access. Make sure you go check out his channel down below for hilarious vids and dank memes. And he's going for a Lizardman Air Force, with the Spirit of Tepok leading the way. It's a Feathered Sky Serpent with a great stat line, Shield of Thorns and Banishment bound spells, and a Master of the Sacred Places aura that turns all units directly below it invisible, instantly, the millisecond he flies overhead, which as you can imagine, can lead to some pretty cool strats. And he's joined by two Ripperdactyls in the skies, including the Colossodon Hunters, and over on the left flank, Oxyotl the Doomslayer, the Demon Hunter, with his golden blowpipe of Patui. Skirmish lord that is very slippery, very difficult to tie down, and he will kill your lords, he will kill your monsters, and he will do it while cackling, and you cannot catch him unless you're going after him with maybe like Warhounds. You need 90 plus speed to get on top of him and shut him down for good. Be careful. You can do a lot of damage very quickly if you are not paying attention. And over on this side, Chameleon Stalkers with their explosive precursor blowpipes. They are actually, and this is going to come as a shock to some people, they're better against single entities. They have crazy nuke damage against stuff like Gorbulls or even Taurox, Ghorgons, that kind of thing. If they throw their precursor jabs into those or blowpipes, it's pretty crazy how much damage they can unleash in that way. They're not bad at killing fodder either, but their role is actually for killing single entities and some of those high-value lords. They have decent stats too. So as this battle gets underway, Stalkers on the Lizardmen left flank moving up across the top of that hill, trying to get into a flanking position. Cannot be seen right now, living up to their moniker at least. And at the moment, the Coatl and the two Ripperdactyl units are thinking about what they want to go into and try to murder. Now, the Colossodon Hunters are probably quite decent against the Ghorgon if they can get a rear charge and the Ghorgon is fighting something else. But the Ripperdactyls are bonus versus infantry, and they'll want to go after some of these Ungor and just get rid of the chaff early on. Okoi's build is pretty much just a swarm of skinks. He has 8 of them, 4 red-crested skinks, 4 chameleon stalkers, and their precursor blowpipes, the explosive damage, go in the way of the Ungor herd. And you can see Even though, like I said, it's better versus single entities and can seriously nuke them into oblivion, it's great versus chaff as well. Ungor Herd down to half HP in a single volley, and they're in an awkward position. They actually can't catch up if the Chameleon Stalkers do not want to engage. Red Crested Skinks going in. Cohort of Sotex stacking up on top of the Ungor Herd, while Savage Dominion in the rear summoned a Cygor, and the boulders are flying and just barely skimming over the top of those cohort of Sotek. Colossadon Hunters and Ripperdactyls watching from overhead. But here comes Taurox, and here comes the Ghorgon, and they've got tons of infantry to slay. Refuse to Die popped on those Red Crested Skinks, and big boulder coming in. Friendly fire from the Cygor, and the Lesser Banishment from the Spirit of Tepok, landing on top of those blobbed up Ungor Herd and instantly evaporating a huge section of the Bray Herd. Amazing. But here comes the Ghorgon. Here comes Taurox, and I think the Lizardmen might have some issues dealing with those two. Just skirmish them down, kite them, ignore them. But it's easier said than done, especially when the Naruto beast is flipping in and forearm just monster mashing everything. Blood Beast going down from Taurox the Brass Bull. They've got the speed to possibly catch up to Chameleons and start slicing through them. I love that charge animation from the Ghorgon though. When all four of those arms start cycloning their way through an enemy battle formation, it just, I mean, as I said at the beginning, they are painting the town red. And Korn is already very pleased with how things are shaping up and his blessed monster. Taurox the Brass Bull popping that Blood Beast ability, getting some space, diving through hordes of Red Crested Skinks. And at the moment, the Warhounds are tying down the Colossadon Hunters as they go after the Bray Shaman. Not a bad idea for those bonus first large flyers to try to surround the Bray Shaman. Meanwhile, the infantry being absolutely tossed in the blender. Not a whole lot for them to do out here. And honestly, if you're Okoi, get those Chameleon Stalkers away from the Ghorgon if you can. Kite, they do have precursor shots, and they can use those like Parthian tactics. They can fire them while they run away. So just try to get some space, shoot those blowpipes in, see what kind of damage you can do to that regenerating freak. Over here, Coatl going after the Centaurs, but won't be able to catch them. They're too quick. And of course, getting poisoned as well by the Grog Hooves of Wolf's Run. And dangerously close to the white line here too. Some of these lower leadership units, if they break, if they tear a route, they might not have enough time to come back to the battlefield. Oh, here we go. We got a big Vile Tide coming down, and those Skink cohort do not have a lot of armor. That's a good spell to deal that kind of damage. Shield of Thorns going down from the Spirit of Tepok, who has not really gotten stuck in yet, but I can see why it's hesitant. The Ghorgon and Taurox nearby and can't catch anything in the back line. The infantry is all already pretty much gone. There's a half-strength Gore Herd and one Ungor Herd, and that's literally it for the Beastmen. The rest is highly mobile stuff or the monsters. And now Bray Herd seems like they might realize they've overextended. Taurox the Brass Bull and the Bloodbrute Behemoth desperately trying to escape from the swarm of Skink cohort hot on their heels in the back line. Colossal Hunters have been shut down, tied down by the Poison Warhounds, and they will not be able to escape. They went after the Bray Shaman, tried to kill the caster, weren't quite able to do it, and they got punished by poison and by those throwing axe units. And there are 3 of them. That's a lot of armor-piercing damage. They won't be able to hit flying units so much, but when those Ripperdactyls land, that's when it becomes a lot easier for you to get those throwing axe volleys in. So at the moment, it's a full-strength unit of the Spirit of Tepok, the Coatl, the remainder of the Bray Herd infantry about to be fully surrounded and destroyed. Great play from Okoi here. He's got those Chameleon Stalkers in the front, the Red Crescent Skinks in the rear, and those are some dead catch-up boys. This was recorded before the patch that changed the color scheme for Taurox, so they aren't quite that red anymore. If you don't like the catch-up Bray Herds, even though they are a bit memey, I get it. It's already been fixed, so don't worry about that. And if you don't want it fixed, well, tell Creative Assembly. F's in the chat, I guess. But yeah, now it's a kite game. Now it's a get the hell away from all this infantry and try to isolate maybe that Spirit of Tepok if it decides to land. But so far, it's been pretty passive, just using the invisibility spells, trying to maybe set up things for when the second Cygor summon comes in. And more importantly, drop those Shield of Thorns and banishments from on high. Taurox and the Bloodbrute Behemoth back into the thick of it now. The second Savage Dominion from the Bray Shaman activated. Cygor about to drop some more boulders, and that will put some pressure on these skinks as they charge forward. And now it's another source of terror for the Beastmen as well. Big charge coming in. The Ghorgon dropping those scything blades down. Taurox the Brass Bull diving in. And skinks are going flying. They're getting decapitated. And the Blood Beast about to be unleashed, baby. Here we go. Unleashing just massive vents of steam. Explosions everywhere. Lots of blood. Lots of gore. How we do it in the Warhammer setting. They try to surround him, but honestly, he could kill like infinite skinks in this way. What he's got to worry about is Oxyotl, he who hunts unseen, the Doomslayer. And that scaling damage is beginning to rack up quite a lot against that Ghorgon and Taurox himself. He's done a lot of damage, got a ton of value this game. You don't really notice it, but the infantry is breaking off. That's a terror route imminent for a lot of those Chameleon Stalkers, and a bunch of the cohorts in the northern part of the map. I guess that's more the southwestern portion of the minimap in the top right anyway. Just broke off. That Cygor summon, that Savage Dominion was a big deal. Meanwhile, Coatl going in, casting some chain lightning from point blank, spitting that venom. That super hot fire. And the Feathered Serpent God mowing through a bunch of Centaur throwing axes finally brought them to melee and might just be able to break their rowdy passive and cause some terror. The leadership is dropping really low, but they did not waver. That means they will retain those buffs. But Oxyotl has lost a lot of his support here. That's where we'll shift back relatively soon once that Cygor dies and kind of degenerates over time. And he is about to do so, but Oxyotl is in a really bad spot. The Ghorgon and Taurox might be able to catch him here. And there are not a lot of infantry left. The Spirit of Tepok needs to come all the way back, needs to help out. But the Bloodbrute Behemoth, one final charge into the skinks, breaking them off. Now Oxyotl is surrounded, and Taurox, the Brass Bull, the Ghorgon, and the rest of these monsters might be able to beat that ass into the ground. There are Ungor herds still alive, and Ripperdactyls all the way in the background. Oh no. They were hunting some of those rounding units early in the battle, and they never got under control. They've not come back. Not sure they'd be enough to change this, but they'd be able to kill the Ghorgon here. That HP bar plummeting because of Oxyotl's skirmish power. Cold-blooded popped on the Spirit of Tepok. It's trying to fight two of the scariest monster hunters in Mortal Empires right now, and it just got RKO'd. Screaming out its death throes, and it just was not enough for that flyer. Now with the rare single entity dead, Blood Beast popped down, dealing some single entity damage. Taurox will be able to conquer his mighty foe and the Doomslayer. One of the only beings to ever make it into the realms of chaos and survive and kill a bunch of demons in the process is defeated for at least this battle. I would have been very curious to see how that would have all shaped up if the Ripperdactyls that were over on the other side of the map that got forgotten about had been there, because Taurox had dropped very low. The Ghorgon was one hit from death, essentially. One charge would have done it for him, and that might have turned things in his favor if that Spirit of Tepok had had some support from the Ripperdactyls in that final engagement. That might have been able to shift things back. Look at how low Taurox was. He got 2,600 damage value there. Ghorgon didn't get crazy damage value because in this game, it actually wasn't really beating up on any of the high value units. There weren't a lot of land dinos for it to go after, and I think that was intentional. I think Okoi was saying, I don't want my Stegodons, I don't want my Carnosaurs to get beat up by the Bloodbrute Behemoth. But yeah, the Bray Shaman did great with his Vile Tides and his Savage Dominions. Spirit of Tepok was passive this game, but you can't really blame him. If he's in a bad spot and the Warhounds catch him out, get a full surround off, he's dead. I mean, the Ghorgon or Taurox, either one of them or both of them come over, attack him a few times, and it just won't last for very long, even with Shield of Thorns down. Oxyotl got 3,100 damage value. He was shooting into the Ghorgon and into Taurox for most of the game, so that's not bad, man. Especially that Ghorgon, it's a huge target, only 50 armor, so yeah, if he has some time to shoot in, especially once it starts dropping lower and lower, that scaling damage kicks in, and Oxyotl will really mess them up. But yeah, pretty fun game there, showing off some of the cool units, and there will be tons more of this kind of content coming over the next several days and weeks. So hope you guys enjoyed it, and if there's anything in particular you want me to show off, let me know in the comment section below. GG to Okoi, and there will be more from our series and from Samurai Warrior very soon.